Welcome back, everyone, to the Progressive Learning Conference hosted by Dyknow. Today is Flipped Learning Day, day 4. Hopefully you've been able to join us for the keynote speech by Tara Martin on Monday, as well as the 2 sessions that were on Tuesday and Wednesday. We had a great session on personalized learning on Tuesday, and on Wednesday we had a STEM session with Chris Wood. So those were great. Hopefully you can join us tomorrow for our session as well. But today is all about flipped learning. So before we jump in, I'm Tiara Lustig. I'm a marketing manager here at Dyknow, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of why we're hosting this conference, where you can find Dyknow's content, and then what you can expect for today and for the rest of the week of the conference. So obviously, we're hosting the Progressive Learning Conference. We are consistently talking with educators, and one thing we really learned during this time of remote learning was that progressive learning styles such as flipped learning, blended STEM, all of the above are really going to shine through and drive education moving forward, in addition to the technology that comes with all of them. So we wanted to dedicate an entire week to progressive learning so that you can learn about these different styles, why they're important, and hear from some of the leaders in each of these topics. So just to give you an overview of where else you can find us, like I said, we're consistently talking with educators, and we do this via our Tackling Tech podcast, where Brett McGrath, our VP of Marketing, is having conversations weekly with different people from all over the country about what education initiatives they're doing, how they're tackling tech in their districts and schools. Those are really great conversations. Our blog, we post on a daily basis there, and we take those conversations, chop them up into really digestible bits of content that you can learn from and read about on your own time. And then the Tech Coach Corner YouTube series is something I'm really passionate about. I have conversations with all of these educators who have been on the podcast, and we talk about specific tactics and skills and tips that they have for other people out there. So you can take that 5-minute episode and really implement that strategy in your classroom almost immediately. And almost everyone who's presenting today has been a guest on the podcast, as well as our Tech Coach Corner YouTube series. So excited to have everyone back today. And then last but not least, you obviously are aware of our event series if you are attending today, but we have our Tech Coach Con event series where we host monthly digital events that are free, and we try to bring together educators from across the country to talk about different topics like remote learning, professional development, and this month we have our Progressive Learning Conference. So we also have a few exclusive and exciting offers for all of you attending today. So I'm going to kick it over to Brett for him to tell you about that.
Thank you, Tiara. We are really excited for 2 special announcements today. So the first announcement is the launch of the Progressive Learning Partner Program. We have spent the last several months having conversations with unbelievably talented and bright educators from all over the country, and the common theme and thread that is woven throughout those conversations is the importance of progressive learning. We're throwing a conference today to talk about progressive learning, so we're super fired up about it. One thing we realized in this process is that we can't be the only voice sharing progressive learning stories with our audience and our network. So what we wanted to do was bring together some of the best content creators around progressive learning and make sure that we were delivering curated playlists to your inbox on a regular basis. So if you're watching this live or watching this recording, you're going to be the first to know about. As you can see, we've already got some incredible sponsors here that are going to be a part of the program, many of which are presenting here today. So thank you so much for your early support. More to come. And if there are people within your network that you're learning from that are creating a podcast or have a YouTube channel around progressive learning, send me an email at bmcgrath@dyknow.com. I'd love to reach out to them and have them be a part of the program. The second announcement is something that I am really, really excited about, and that aligns with the Dyknow product and your schools in your school's progressive learning programs. So we get a lot of questions about the Dyknow product, whether it's on the podcast or through direct messages. And so what we wanted to do was extend an offer for Dyknow. And Dyknow, just in case you don't know, Dyknow is a student device monitoring software that works in person, in remote, and in a hybrid learning environment. It helps empower teachers to passively or actively monitor devices as the autonomy between students and teachers increases with distance, blended, and all these progressive learning styles that we are talking about today. So we're extending a 30% discount on the 2021 school year for anyone who signs up for that. So you can follow the link to learn more about that. This offer will expire on November 13th, so you'll need to get signed up by November 13th. But if you have any questions, again, you can reach out to me at bmcgrath@dyknow.com. Make sure you get those answered. Without further ado, I'll kick it back over to you, Tiara.
Thanks, Brett. We will go ahead and move forward with what you can expect from the conference week and as well as today's session. So this week has been really exciting. Like I said, we had our live keynote with Tara Martin on Monday. On Tuesday, we had our personalized learning session with Jill. Wednesday, we had our STEM session with Chris Woods. Today is Flipped Learning Day. And tomorrow, we are closing out the week with SEL, PBL, and Equity presented by George Valenzuela. So we have a great week of learning. I think we're covering the spectrum of progressive learning styles, and we can't wait for all of you to engage with these different sessions. We're almost through all of the housekeeping, so we'll get to the presentation shortly, but I want to let you all know what you can expect today and following the session. So today, obviously, you are watching a recorded session. This was accessible through a link that you accessed through an email sent to you. If you were unable to register for the session, or if you have colleagues who want to access these recordings after the week of the conference, we will be posting all of these sessions on our YouTube channel on Monday, September 28th, and you can access them there. Because this is a recording, we can't have the live conference experience where you can engage with your fellow attendees as well as our presenters. So we're trying to replicate that as best as we can with remote learning. So we are hosting Twitter chats twice throughout each day, and we're really taking bits and pieces of everyone's presentation, putting together questions and thought starters so that you can engage with the presenters, ask them questions, as well as your fellow attendees. So join us at noon and 4 p.m. each day, including today, and use the hashtag DyKnowPLC to engage with your presenters as well as attendees and join these Twitter chats. If you can't join the Twitter chats, use the hashtag. We'd love to know what you're thinking about the presentations. If you have any questions outstanding for presenters, they would all be happy to answer them there. And you can engage with us at Dyknow as well through that hashtag. Last but not least, I'm sure everyone who's attending today is looking to get professional development credit for attending this hour-long session. So we will be providing a certificate of attendance to everyone who attended either the live keynote or one of the recorded breakout sessions. That certificate will have all of the sessions on it, and you can self-report what you attended and for how long. If you need further kind of evidence that you did attend the session, I'm happy to provide that. Just reply directly to the email where you received the certificate, or email me directly at tlustig@dyknow.com, and that will be in the description of this video as well. So we will be sure to get you that certificate. All right, I think we're done with all the housekeeping. So let's jump into today's session. Today, like I've said, is Flipped Learning Day. And we have Kyle Niemis, Eric Guise, and Nick Johnson joining us. They are Treefish EDU, also known as, and they will be presenting on Flipped Flops, Growing with Every Challenge. So Nick, Eric, Kyle, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'll ask you all to unmute yourselves. And maybe you could give a brief introduction to yourselves as well as Treefish EDU before you jump into your presentation, but I'll pass it off to you.
Cool, thanks, Tiara. All right, Eric, so you're going to share. Yeah, we're going to share and we'll introduce ourselves. We're really excited to be here for PLC 2020. It's kind of a nice little honor for us. We love flipped learning. So yeah, so we'll introduce ourselves, take it step by step, and really explain what we are, what we're about, and take it from there. So I'll start off with, so we are Treefish EDU. That is our crew, Eric, Nick, and I. And Treefish EDU, if you are like me and you know this Einstein quote, it is my absolute favorite. So we decided to kind of base our entire PD model off this. That's what our company is based off of. So it's everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life believing it's stupid. So of course, it's all about personalized learning, doing everything we can to make everyone feel good about themselves and also be successful. So that is why we call ourselves Treefish EDU. So at the bottom of the slide, if you're watching this video right now, and hopefully you are, of course, at the bottom of the slide, if you see that link, that's going to link to our presentation. So the reason we're giving it to you right now is so you can have it, so you can follow along with us. This presentation is meant to be interactive, not so much sit and get, because we have videos, we have links to other things, so you can pause us along the way or just bookmark us for a later date. But we wanted you to have this link so you have access to everything that we are sharing, so it can be live with you. So we are Treefish EDU.
All right, so a little bit about us. My name is Eric Guise. I am an ed tech coach and AP bio teacher from Hopewell Valley. I'm also co-host of a podcast called Got Tech, the podcast.
And I am Kyle Niemis. I guess I should introduce myself before I started talking about who we are. I'm Kyle Niemis. And so I'm an ed tech coach in New Jersey. And I'm also the founder of the ed tech tool Classroom Q.
And my name is Nick Johnson. I'm a chemistry teacher and a tech integration specialist. I'm also a co-host of Got Tech, the podcast, along with Eric.
We just want to point out before we go any further that if you want, we're going to be talking about some ed tech tools today. And if you want some free premium trials for these two of our favorite ed tech tools for 90 days, make sure you go to this bit.ly link, bit.ly/treefish. And we'll make sure that we hook you up with those free premium trials. All right, our plan for this breakout session, we want to cover three things. First, what is flipped learning? Second, we want to go over some of our biggest flip-flops or ways that we have totally failed in the flipped classroom so we could all grow from them. And then finally, we want to go over some of our top tech for flipped classrooms. So what is flipped learning? I'm going to turn this over to Nick so he could give you a standard definition. And then after that, we're going to look at two different flipped learning styles.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So flipped learning, it's tough because it's one of those things you can define it so many ways and it can be so many things. And as you get into it in your own teaching practice, and me and Kyle are both going to sort of share these like diverging directions that we've taken it. It's just kind of nice because it gives you so much creative freedom. But I think, and there's lots of definitions out there, but the one I like the best is from flippedlearning.org, also an amazing resource just on its own if you want to check it out. But this is their definition that you see on the right-hand side. So this is a methodology. It's a pedagogical approach. And essentially you are flipping the way a traditional classroom typically happens. So instead of where there's direct instruction in the classroom and you're just lecturing or speaking straight to your students, now that direct instruction moves to what they're calling here the group learning space, or from the group learning space, sorry, to the individual learning space, which is vague on purpose. Essentially what it means is instead of me lecturing to my kids live in person, I make that content available to them other ways, other places, other times. And that's what they mean by individual learning space. So whatever that individual learning space is to you, that's where the direct instruction now takes place. For us, you'll see that we typically do this with videos where the students are watching videos either for homework at home or study halls, or maybe even in class. And that's where they get the content at their own pace on their own time. And this, then it sort of changes then what class becomes, right? So the resulting group space, which is probably your classroom, we then transform that into something that's much more dynamic, interactive. This really frees up me, the teacher, because now I don't have to be talking to the whole group. I can move from, small group of students to small group of students. I can have different students working on different things. Essentially, I like to say that it really just frees up your classroom for the fun stuff, hands-on activities, creative projects, labs if you're a science teacher, technology integration, all the stuff we wish we could do all the time, but you don't typically have time for it. Now you have time for it because you don't need the classroom time for that direct instruction anymore. So if Eric moves, sorry, dude, go ahead.
Yeah, so let's get into the two different types of flipped learning. And Nick, I'll have you talk about the at-home flipped because you've had a lot of success with that version of flipped learning. And then we'll get to Kyle for in-class flipped learning.
Yeah, so like I said at the beginning, that you can take this so many directions. What we're calling here at-home flipped learning is sort of my version of it, and then Kyle's going to give you his. So for me, my students are viewing content And this content can take any number of forms. They sometimes look at direct research articles, primary sources. Most of the time it's videos that I create and post on YouTube. Sometimes it's videos that other teachers create. Sometimes it's articles, lectures, really anything, any sort of digital content. And for me, it's called at-home flipping because they are doing this for homework. So instead of me saying, go to your textbook and do numbers 1 through 20 evens only, that is no more. Instead, it's, hey guys, watch this 2-minute video or watch these 2 separate 4-minute videos, and that's their homework. And then when they come to class, now I don't have to spend that time in class telling them about that content. I might take the first 5 or 10 minutes of class and sort of recap it, let the kids ask any questions, but essentially the entire class period now is just these breakout spaces where kids are engaged in lab work, projects, different activities. Like I said before, anything that all the stuff I always wanted to do, but just didn't actually have time for. Some of the pros to doing it this way is obviously the control it gives students. So they are now in charge of when and where they access this content. Technically, I'm assigning it as homework, and that's how most kids choose to do it. But all the videos that I push out to them, they're all on YouTube. So a lot of them will just pull it up on their phone. I stay on the bus ride to school in the morning. They're short, 5 minutes at the most. So they can get this done in an amount of time to them that seems way quicker than they would be able to otherwise. They can pause it, they can stop, they can go back, slow down, speed up. It gives them way more control over the whole learning process. It also doesn't go away, which is different than a lecture where they sort of have one shot to get it. Now that video is always there and they can go back and watch it as often or whenever they need. Another pro, just way more class time for the fun stuff, personalized help. That's one of the major benefits of this is I go straight to the students who I know need that extra support and I can help them because now we've got the time to do it. And this is sort of a con, but I'm going to flip it into a pro. There's lots of front-loaded work on the teacher side for this, especially the way I do it, which is making my own video content. You'll find your students like that better. But that content lives on, and once it's done, you'll find that the setup for class is actually extremely easy, and your focus becomes solely on formative assessment and then building activities to support your students' unique needs. So that's sort of my take on it. I know, Kyle, you've got a similar but altered version of this. How does it look for you?
So that was great. I feel like you covered so many of the main benefits. So this is important to say. So much of what Nick said applies to both of us. But I'll tell you, and I'm going to show you this video that is both my favorite video and my least favorite video of all time. But in a nutshell, I tried Nick's way and it just didn't work for me. I also am in middle school, you're in a high school, we have different types of kids. There's so many reasons. So I think it's important to know for anyone out there, especially right now, again, if you're watching this right now during a pandemic and there's hybrid, you do whatever you need to do to survive. And I can tell you for me, this just happened to work better for me. So I want to at least expose you to it because I think flipped learning, when you say it, everyone's like, oh, it means you go home and watch videos the same way Nick described. And that might be great. But for me, I decided to try them watching in class, which seems backwards and weird. So before I show you my video, I'm going to acknowledge how weird that is because I even had kids in the beginning who were like, wait, you're giving me a video to watch, but you're right here. Like, why don't you just teach us? Like, what is your job, dude? I can tell you that it's different at first, but I'm going to hopefully show you the reasons that I loved it. So, all right, Eric, so if we can play for them this video that is super cringy, but shows you why I love the in-class flip versus the at-home flip. So I'm going to take you a journey into my class. Oh, I was a middle school science teacher. I don't even know if I ever said that. 7th grade middle school science teacher for many, many years. All right, Eric, hit it, dude.
Hi, welcome to my classroom. My name is Kyle Niemis. I'm a 7th grade science teacher. So in this video, here's what I want to show you. I want to show you the benefits that I have of flipping my lessons. I actually do what's called an in-class flip. So I want to show you the benefits of flipping, but also the doors that is opened for a UDL type environment where kids can kind of choose what they want to do. So take a look. You see how all the kids around the room are learning a little bit differently? So it might be kind of hard to see. So why don't we freeze it for you so we can take a closer look at what everyone's doing. Ready? And freeze. All right. Let's take a close look. Come with me. Come with me. So you look here. you see two different students are watching the video, the recorded lesson of my lesson. And so why that's so beneficial is that each of them is watching it a little differently. One's watching at double speed, one's watching it single, one has closed captioning, they can pause, they can rewind. The big idea is that when I'm up in front of the class teaching, there's only one speed. But now they can go at any speed they want, they can pause, they have complete control over their learning so they can learn at their own pace. But there's other advantages too. Come on, come with me. So you look over at this guy over here. So this student here is kind of having a bad day. Right? And students have bad days. Sometimes they zone out and they don't listen when you're talking. So now what's great is that if he's zoning out, he can still go home and he can watch the lesson whenever he wants. And the same for this empty chair. Okay? This person's not even in class, they're absent, but they could be watching the video at home or the very next day. They never have to miss anything when your lessons are recorded. But beyond just having recorded lessons, what it does is it opens doorways for kids to choose how to learn however they want beyond just video. So let me show you some of the different ways that my students in this class choose to learn the materials. So come on over, come on. So we have a student over here who's using an online study guide to help him review and play, so he likes to learn by playing. These students over here, they like to learn by watching. So we have a student watching a digestive system video and playing a digestive system game, so they're using other online resources. But beyond online, there's other opportunities for kids to learn too. So you look over here at the whiteboard, we have these students drawing and quizzing each other because they like to learn by drawing and seeing. Come on. And then this student over here likes to learn by reading. Okay, so she's choosing to read about the topic, where these guys over here are more tactile and they like to learn by holding and quizzing each other and able to hold the different organs. So you see, recording lessons is amazing by itself, but what it really opens up the opportunity to is a UDL, Universally Designed Learning Classroom, where everyone can choose however they want to learn. Definitely worth giving a try.
That was fantastic.
Awesome.
Oh, okay. So if you haven't quit the video, I mean, God bless you for sticking through that, but hopefully you see why I love it so much. So I won't repeat everything it says, but you'll see some of the reasons that I do love it as opposed to the at home is because the kids are there in class. They can't say like, I just didn't do it. But I love the fact that I would say it's like cloning yourself, because the guy on the screen is giving the lesson, but then in real life, you is totally there to answer questions in real time. You're there to have small group instruction, pull kids away. And the number one thing I always say is the relationship piece. Because when you're in front of the class teaching at kids, and I say at kids because no matter how hard you try, you're saying information at 30 of them. You can't have really great individual side conversations with kids because you're talking to your students as a whole. So, but when they're watching videos in class and they're learning that way, you can sit down next to a kid, you can ask him about his soccer game, you can ask him about life, you can just kind of, I don't know, in some ways get off topic, which is some of the best parts about teaching, I think. So for me, I love it. And you saw, I love it because it opens the doorways for choice. So I put two little things in here on the bottom right that are almost like my piece of advice. And Nick said it too. No matter what, you got to make your own videos. So I want to put that here in case we don't put that somewhere else, because then you kind of lose some credibility if you're like, oh, go watch this YouTube video of this guy do this thing, and I'm going to sit up here in front of the classroom. So make sure it's your own videos. And I always say also use your powers of freedom for good, because at first, if kids are watching videos, you can be like, what do I do with my life? Because I'm so used to sitting in front of the class talking to them. So just don't grade papers, don't sit there and do random stuff. Make sure you're actually like taking advantage of that and doing all the things you never had time to do, like hang out with kids and have really good small group instruction. So that is the in-class flip. I know we're not battling, Nick, and I feel like Eric has tainted me in some ways. I feel like every time now we present together, I feel like he's going to give us a score and we're battling.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm battling you versus in class and out of class. So just keep that in mind, Eric, in case you're giving some points down the road.
Yeah, I might have to give some points, but my points are going to be, how can we use both of these in our current situation, whether it's remote, in class, or a hybrid? And now I know Nick and I, we're in a hybrid situation where we have kids in class, and at the same time, we're teaching the kids at home as well. So I could really see both of these methods fitting into that, and both of these methods can fit into a remote setting where we're utilizing breakout rooms and Zoom, or Google Meet is coming out with those. So I could really see both of these practices being used in both, and you can let these relationships that we're building with students in small groups live on through this virtual practice. So let's keep going here, and now we're going to get into our portion of the breakout session, where we call our flip-flops. And I will tell you, I'll preface this by saying, you know, we are not perfect, and we do mess up a lot, but we like to learn from those mess ups. And we do a YouTube series called flops, you could go to YouTube and just search for Treefish EDU, and this will come up. And you could, if you like any of these topics, we do them more detailed version of that on our YouTube series. So we are going to start off with Nick with his first flip-flop.
Yeah, thanks. That was a good intro to the whole thing. And like I said, we're not perfect, and we've grown so much over years, close to a decade for most of us, trying to figure out how to do this flipped classroom in the best way possible. And you're all going to go through your own growing pains too when you start to sort of go down this road. But hopefully with some of these, you can avoid the mistakes that we made early on. So this first one is one of mine. The flop is that I spent all summer trying to make the perfect video. I'm a perfectionist. If something gets put out there, especially that I know I'm posting to YouTube, like a video that's going to live on permanently with my name attached to it, I get obsessive about making sure it's perfect in every single way. So that's the flop, because you shouldn't worry about that, or at least you should try not to. Don't worry about trying to create the perfect video every single time. Just like in your classroom, imperfections have value and are okay. You know, as teachers, we all get to a point where you are comfortable enough where when you mess up and you make a mistake and you can turn that into a joke, give your class a moment to laugh, show some humility to your students. Those are some of the most valuable moments in your classroom, and it builds rapport and just makes it seem like a more wholesome, safe place to be. You sort of can think about your videos as the same way. I can't tell you how much my kids love it when I make a mistake in a video and I laugh about it and I leave it in there, and it just becomes part of my whole video scheme almost, is that sometimes I mess up and it's funny, and that's part of it. So the same way you think about your direct instruction in class, your videos can be that too, and you don't have to spend all this time making them these flawless, highly produced things. And then I mentioned this at the beginning of our session here today. Creating videos, it does take a lot of time up front, but there's lots of screencasting tools where you can take PowerPoints or Google Slides that you already have, you project them onto your computer, and you just record your screen with one of these screencasting tools. I'll list a couple of my favorites now. Screencastify is the obvious choice. People love that. Personally, I'm a Screencast-O-Matic user. I like it a little bit better and has a couple more features for me. You could even just throw yourself into, say, a Zoom meeting and record the Zoom meeting with your screen being shared. There's lots of ways to do it. You're not taking that much extra time. These are tools you've already got. You're just recording yourself, basically narrate over top of that. But there is still some work to it. And so it's very front loaded, but if you build up these things slowly over time, I like to flip 1 or 2 of my chemistry class units per year. And within a few short years, you'll feel like you have this insane, impressive catalog. I think I'm up to like 450 some videos, and it really went by in the blink of an eye. So just sort of keep that in mind. Keep it at like a slow burn, and eventually you'll have a nice catalog of stuff that you can use from year to year.
Nick, I'm going to jump in for a sec.
Yep.
So beyond the screencast, because this is the question we get all the time too, is like, right, like what kind of technology do you use? How do you do it? So your points are perfect. Like keep it easy. For the way I would even do it is I didn't screencast a lot. I would just prop my phone up on a chair, on a table, and just record myself teaching to an invisible classroom. So if you're worried about even learning a new software, if you could take a video of your kids or anything out there in the world with your phone, you can record a lesson. And then think about it, instead of sitting up there, like I used to teach the same thing 5 times. So instead of teaching the same thing 5 times, just get to school early one day and just record yourself teaching it once, and you're done. And especially if you're a math teacher, you want to write on the board and stuff like that. So you can even just, again, keep it as simple as that. No fancy tech for sure.
So I'm even going to throw a third option out there. And, you know, I struggle with time and things like that. And we'll get into that a little bit more a little later. But there's also a Google extension, Chrome extension called Record to Slides that will allow you to do the same thing. Except what it's going to do is every slide would be a new video, and they upload straight to your Google slide that you're working on. All right, let's go into the next one, which is mine. And the flop was I assigned a 30-minute YouTube video for homework. And I did do this. And let me tell you, it was a big flop because no one's ever going to sit down and watch a 30-minute video. But I will tell you this, I basically did the whole chapter in 30 minutes and I had checkpoints throughout it. But we said this a little bit earlier, we need to keep our videos short so students actually watches them. So when you think of seeing something that's 30 minutes long, a lot of students see that and they're just like, there's no way. And a common rule or common guideline is to keep these videos 1 minute per grade level. So if you have a long video, this is an easy solution, just shorten them, split it up. Students would rather watch 3 separate 3-minute videos than 1 single 9-minute video. So anything you guys want to add on that one?
It did make me think of one of the other benefits to this. So it's not really part of the flap, but just watching how much the kids prefer this option over traditional learning. If you assign them for homework or like Kyle in class, and they see that their homework is a 3-minute video or a 5-minute, I've even assigned 2 separate 5-minute videos, they will appreciate and respond to how much shorter and how much easier this is for them in terms of homework than the alternatives. And I just think that time piece is like an added benefit, and it helps with the student buy into the whole process as well.
I mean, so I'm gonna, Tiara might hate me for saying this, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I feel like we can't be hypocritical, right? Because right now we're making a 45-minute video and we're seeing a slide about saying you can't have a 30-minute video. So I don't know, Tiara, and all your magic you do behind the scenes here, but I mean, maybe beyond this being a 30-minute video, we can have for our viewers little sections of just our flops or just our main tips or just our tech tools, because maybe that's all they want to learn about, and that could make it potentially easy for them. So if you're watching this, hopefully we can shorten it up for you too, to again, practice what we preach a bit.
Yeah, all those are great suggestions, but I'm gonna also say that this really helps our special ed population. Being able to pause a video and take notes that is 5 minutes long is a lot better for them than a video that is 10 minutes. It kind of helps them just break it up a little bit better. And I've heard a lot of positive comments and feedback based on that practice. So let's go to our next one, which is Kyle. Go ahead.
Okay, so you saw my video, if you watched that, about choice. So this is a really short and sweet tip, and basically don't do what I did and get so excited about the idea of student choice. And even that video you saw had so many choices. That was very much like over time. So if you're trying to give choices to your kids, start really small, like maybe 2 or 3 choices. And whatever choice you decide, make sure they're different from each other, which I know sounds like common sense, but I know I made the mistake of like, oh, this is a cool YouTube video and this is a cool YouTube video. Here's 7 YouTube videos, guys, pick whatever one you want. And that was like paralysis on their part. So just pick a great video, a great text, a great hands-on option if you have it. So just a few options that are really good. You know your kids, otherwise they are going to just freeze with the paralysis. So that is my biggest advice if you're trying to include choice in this.
So I'll just hop in real quick and say your third choice, if you have 3 choices, which is perfect, your third choice could always be convince me or propose something. And that's going to allow that kid that has a specific way he wants to learn to come up and, you know, maybe pass that by you as a third option or a third choice.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, so let's go into our next one, which is Nick.
Yeah, this is probably my biggest blunder, my biggest flop. I let my Chromebook do more teaching than me. Early on in the process of flipping my classroom, I flipped an entire unit worth of content for my chemistry students, my sophomore chem kids. And I put an insane amount of work into the videos and crafting. Like, I think I posted each video on like a separate Google Doc, and the Google Doc had links to other Google Docs that automatically made the students' own copies of things, and all the directions were self-contained. Everything was there, start to finish, ready to go. And I kind of just sat up at the front of the room and put my feet up and said, good luck, students. Everything is there for you. I hope it goes well. Because I knew how much work I put into this thing, and I knew that all these resources were there, and I just sort of let them go. And of course I was mingling and helping and, you know, answering questions and sort of stepping in as needed. but it didn't really do much else to pull the class together. Or as you said earlier, Kyle, I am still the teacher, and you still need to make the students feel like you're doing something. It's not just enough to put together this giant, insane catalog, no matter how great it is. You still have to be active and involved in that classroom, and you can't let your Chromebook run the show. It's just not going to work. So a couple tips related to this is, you know, your time is now free, so you can put it to good use. Plan as many formative assessments as you possibly can. And then you've actually got to use it in those moments where you're just sitting up at the front of the class and everybody's working so nicely and involved in their things. Start scrolling through the data from that Google form and pull out the, you know, the lowest student scores on a particular thing and get those kids up with you in the front of the room. One, it lets them know that you're watching. It lets them know that this is still class. They are still responsible for their work, and the things that are posted for them to watch or listen to and do, it matters. And if they're not doing it and not getting it, you know, somebody's going to call them out, or it's up to them to figure that out. And if they don't, they're going to hear about it from you. It's really an issue of accountability, but you've got to make the effort to use that time. And this really comes back to number 2 there. You still need to facilitate your classroom. So just using that time by flipped learning to meet with students in small groups. One thing actually that I just remembered worked really great for me was like once a day or once every other day, still holding that large group instruction. I said this in one of our recent Flip Flops episodes in the YouTube series, but I'll say it here because I think it's super important. When you actually stand up and do that lecture, it's going to be way shorter, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at the extreme most. It is insane how much more the students will pay attention to you in a way that they would have never done before when you were lecturing day in and day out. And it's because it's different, it's novel, and they're feeling like, oh, you know, Mr. Johnson is talking now. There must be something really important that he's about to say. And they're fixed on it. So you can convey so much information to them, and it sticks so much better in these moments, but by just appearing like you're still the teacher in charge of the classroom. So that's my biggest flop.
That's a good one. I made that same one too, Nick. I feel like I let the computers do so much. And then you're totally right. I feel like then teaching in front of the classroom becomes so much more fun because you don't do it that much. Like I used to do it as like my hook of just to get them excited about it. And then I'd set them free and they can do their choice learning. But it becomes more fun because you're not up there for as often. Plus, like, it's not a big deal if you forgot to say something because you got your videos, which are going to cover the meat and potatoes of the lesson. So I don't know. I agree with you. I think it's fun to do, but also you got to make sure that you do it. You don't just do 100% computer. Like I made that mistake too.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'll hop in here and you talked a little bit about formative assessments. Our goal for that is to give instant or near instant feedback and then come back in and use that feedback or use the data that we collected, you know, almost immediately. The sooner the better, just so we could keep it fresh in their minds. But what are some pieces of ed tech that we could use for formative assessments that will give us instant feedback? We got quizzes, we got Quizlet, we got my favorite GimKit, we got Quizalize and Kahoot. Those are just 5 off the top of my head that, you know, I could kind of sprout out there. All right, so let's go into, there we go, our next one, which is back up to Kyle.
So yeah, this is about keeping the parents in the loop, and also the first one I already said, but I'm going to reiterate because I think it's important. You got to be in the video. When you make your own, they have to be your videos. If you're scared, you can start small and just have your voice in the video, because either way, it's still better than a YouTube video. But then ultimately, like, it's really important to see your face. I know for me personally, if I'm ever trying to look on something on YouTube and it's just like a screen, I'm kind of over it right away. Like, I want to see the person who's giving me the content. And if you're saying right now, like, but why reinvent the wheel? Like, why make something when there's amazing YouTube videos out there? I agree with you 100%. And so I always had them as well. I had my lesson plus a really amazing YouTube video that was potentially way more engaging and way more funny than I was as a supplement, but you still need to have yours as your own. And this one also talked about the parents, because now at least, like Nick and Eric and I, we started like 9-10 years ago when we started this, and it was still pretty new. At least now it's not as new, so I don't think you're gonna get as much pushback from parents. But I always made a parent video in the beginning of the year explaining why I gave your kid a video when I'm still in the classroom, and I showed them all the benefits. So just don't forget to kind of keep your parents in the loop, because otherwise they could have the misconception that you're not teaching because you're making videos. So it's important just to fill them in, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think if we just have everyone have permission to share out your video there, we could just use that as the standard video to show parents what in-class flipping is all about.
Yikes, no one, okay.
All right, back to Nick.
Yeah, so another one of mine, I felt my students knew more about ed tech than me. This comes again from early on when Eric and I went to a PD about flipped learning, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. I knew right then that this is where I wanted to take my classroom, and it was going to be sort of like this giant pursuit for me over the next coming years, and that's the way it was. But in this presentation, we were told that, I think the term was, I have it there in tip number 1. The term is that students are technology natives. I think that's the most common way that people say it. And they will be naturals at this, and you don't really have to give them much coaching because they'll already know how to use most of this stuff. And what they don't know how to use, they'll be able to figure it out. So I didn't really do too much explaining to them. And a lot of the projects that I started working on, or the assignments I was giving them for in class, involved technology, screencasting tools, video editing tools, all sorts of stuff, creating websites on like a Google Sites, or at the time we were doing Weebly, I think. But I just sort of let them go. And I was like, well, you guys are tech natives, right? You should be able to figure this out. And they really can't. Or if they can, it just takes them way too much time, an unreasonable amount of time for what I should be expecting them to do for one class out of an entire day's worth of classes. So I think a better way to say it is that, yeah, students are tech natives, but really only for simple things like YouTube and social media that they use all the time. But if you just tell your kids, okay, guys, today you're going to make a Screencastify on the cell and the organelles inside of a cell, it's not going to work. They do need some coaching on that Screencastify. It's not fair to expect them to learn this new technology on their own. So you have to remember that part of your flipped classroom isn't just the content. You've also got to build in time for tutorials. So I started making like little side video tutorials, 30 seconds long, like here's how you download Screencastify. Here's a sample recording, so that maybe the kids that are, super tech centric can just run with it, and they're like, yeah, I get it. But the ones that aren't, they can watch these tutorials, or they can just ask me for help. And if you don't want to do that, then you've at least need a quick, maybe 10 minutes at the start of that class project to just show them, sit them down, take that 10 minutes and say, okay, guys, here's what you're going to use. Here's how you do it. Essentially, this is modeling what you expect, and the results that you'll get back from that are 10 times better. And I can't recommend enough how obvious this sounds, I know, but it makes just a giant difference if you really devote some time to it.
So Nick, it sounds like you almost did an in-class flip, if I'm not mistaken. So you made videos and they watched it in class, right?
This was, yeah, thanks.
There we go. See, you're doing it without even knowing it. You're already on my team.
I hope Tiara's not assigning points, because you just got a couple.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
The one thing that I'll add to this is that the length of the video for these tutorials does make a difference. If you could break, for example, I'm using WeVideo right now for a lot of my projects. So what I did is I made 10 videos, 1 minute. They're all about a minute long, and they each do a different skill in WeVideo. That way, if they want to use that particular skill, they have a 1 minute video that allows or shows them how to use WeVideo for that purpose. And that has been working out pretty well. So let's get into our last main topic here. And this is probably our favorite when it comes to really seeing the ed tech, or the tech for flipped classrooms. Now, we have gone over some tech tools along the way, but we're each going to show 2 different tech tools, or explain 2 different tech tools that are pretty awesome. And I will tell you that everything in this presentation is linked. So I'm going to go here. All these are linked. They will take you exactly to our picks, to their websites, or to how you sign in. All right, I'm going to go first, and I'm going to go over Moat. Now, Moat is relatively new. It's one of my favorite extensions for feedback. This Chrome extension allows you to add feedback to any doc that your student is working on. And what it's going to do is transcribe your voice comments So it gives it to them in two different ways. It gives them as text, and it also gives them as an audio message that you could share with your students. When your students get this feedback, they have the ability to select the emoji to allow you to know. It gives you some feedback back as a teacher. So one is a diamond, means that they're all good, they're still working, they have no questions. And the other one's like a concerned, questioning face emoji that means that you might want to go back and check in with them. Mote will give you a feedback report into your email account or to your activity dashboard. This is just an absolutely fantastic tool for feedback. All right, so if you click on any of the Mote or the picture, that will take you there. Here's a video on how it is used. There's one of the creators, Will Jackson. You could play that video and get a little bit more out of that. So even if you don't have time to look at this now, when stuff starts to calm down, you can come back and watch the video.
Eric, did you mention that they can get the 90 days free trial or no?
Yeah, that's going to be in our little link down at the bottom. That's going to be one of the ones that we we'll send out a 90-day free trial for the premium version.
Cool.
All right, my second one is Slides Mania. Slides Mania is basically the thing that saves me the most time. I am not the most artistically creative person. But Slides Mania gives us templates for Google Slides and PowerPoint. You could see some of the ones here, and these are incredible. The creator of Slides Mania, her name is Paula. She does an amazing job at providing teachers with free resource templates. There are things from gamification in here, such as this one. Here's a digital game board. There's some regular presentations. The one that we're using right now is a Slides Mania presentation. This is one of the ones that we like because of its simplicity. But then you have something like a filing cabinet up here where you could click on one of the drawers, it pops out, and you could have a file for each unit. And as you click on that, it has a calendar with all the activities or however you want to use it. There are digital notebooks on this site that allows you to, basically right now in my AP Bio class, they're going to be turning in a digital notebook. I have all my assignments in this digital notebook, and they have to share copies of what they create for each assignment in that digital notebook. So these are my two favorite, Mote and Slides Mania.
All right, so I'll jump in and share a little bit about my two selections here. Yeah, Kyle, this is kind of nerve-wracking. I'll be promoting Kyle's own company right now that he created and developed or co-created. So, dude, I hope I do a good enough job.
Listen, I just hope it doesn't feel sleazy that you're talking about my company here.
Hey, more points for Kyle.
Yeah, you can mail me the check as well for this free promotion. Dude. Yep. But anyway, Classroom Q, it actually is a really great tool. We'd be talking about it whether or not Kyle started this thing or not. I think the best way to describe it, and I'm stealing this from Kyle's own pitch, but I think it's kind of the cleanest way to introduce it. You can imagine these moments as a teacher, and more so in the flipped classroom, but we've all had this time where students are working around the classroom on different things, and it's maybe a little bit extra complicated, or there's just a lot going on, and their hands start raising all over the place, and you're trying to bounce from group to group along the way. But as you do so, especially maybe if you get caught in one group that need a little bit of extra support, you can't make your way to everybody. And then what happens if this goes on long enough is the students who are, they have their hand up, it starts to slump, and then eventually, they may decide to just put it down because they see you're too busy. They don't want to be a bother. And they just say, oh, well, we'll make a guess, or we'll leave it blank, or we'll finish it later. And then they never get the chance to. And that's just part of the limitations of that physical space. But with Classroom Q, you can give your students a way to raise their hand, let you know that they need that help, but they don't have to actually sit there with their hand raised, and you can make sure you get to all of them in time. So that's the description we have there. It's an electronic hand raising tool so that no students get overlooked. The way it works is you share out a code to your students. There's no signups on their end, so it's really easy to use. When they go to classroomq.com, there's a spot for them to type in that class code and on their screen, and they can even do this on their phone, which is what I like best about it. They don't need some kind of fancy device like a Chromebook out, although it'll work there too. They just get a page with a button and a spot to type in a comment. So they can type in the comment, which can be as simple as "I need help," or they can ask their specific question. And then they hit the button, and as they hit that button, they get added to a list, a queue that you, the teacher, can see as you're logged in, responding to that particular code that you just shared out. So in, sort of managing the teacher side and managing that queue, I can work my way fairly to each student group in the order that they actually ask their question. I know exactly who I've gotten to because I can clear them from the list as I talk to them. And then I have a list at the end of class for the students I didn't get to talk to and make sure to build in time to follow up with them. I've also found it in the remote learning or hybrid learning environment that we're in right now at the start of the 2020 school year. This is incredible. If my students are in breakout rooms, and depending on the functionality of those breakout rooms and how it's working on that particular day, having a classroom queue shared so that they can ask me stuff that's not reliant on some kind of fancy technology like Zoom that's breaking or not working, it's almost been priceless. So I cannot recommend Classroom Queue enough, and I believe we're offering a free version of this as well. Kyle, how did I do, man? Are you gonna hire me now?
Good. I feel like I want to reach across and give you a hug. That was amazing.
All
That
right.
was such a nice description. Yeah, thank you. So just want to clarify that we are free all the time, and most teachers use our free version. So our 90-day that we're offering up is just in case you want some of the extra features like collecting data and unlimited people in the queue. But that was so good, man. Thank you.
Yeah, all right, great.
I just want to add something here. I use Classroom Q in a different way. Especially when we're giving students like playlists or modules to complete. If we break them into 5 groups of 4, you can use this for them to share what activity or what part of the playlist that they're on. I like to also use it like that. I know it wasn't initially intended for that, but I like to add a couple different ways that I could use tools outside of the conventional ways that they were intended for.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks.
Yep, yeah, I always forget to mention that. Thanks for sharing that out. And then of course, if you click, you can watch this video on your own time. And we'll get to my second selection here, which is Edpuzzle. This is a really popular one, and with good reason. It's just something we always sort of feel the need to mention when you're talking about the flipped classroom because it's almost essential. So if you can imagine Edpuzzle, it's basically building an assessment, hopefully a formative assessment, into your video content itself. So you can take any YouTube video that you have created and posted or that you want to share. And then you can see in the little view bar here in blue, there's these little green kind of check marks or tabs, whatever you want to call them. You can preset these timestamps in the video where the video automatically pauses. And over here in the sidebar, it asks the students a question, which is a great way it's great for a couple things. One, it's sort of a way that I can highlight in the video, like, hey kids, this is a spot that's extra important. Let me like physically draw your attention to it by the video stopping and asking about it. 2, it's a way for me to gather information. If the 4th question down the line, only 25% of the students got correct, that is now something that I know I need to start my next class period with sort of revisiting or going over, because that's something that most people were confused on. So it's combining assessment questions with any video to flip your lessons, and it's the best way to share out this content with your kids. This one's priceless for a teacher who's doing a flipped classroom.
All right, let's get to Kyle.
All right. So yeah, I'll wrap it up with my 2. So yeah, when we, Eric and Nick and I are great for flipped learning, and that's really hard to narrow it down. So I'm not going to go so much into the tool as far as more why you'd even want to use them. So basically in flipped learning, like Nick talked about, you need to really keep track of what your kids know and don't know, and let them know what they don't know and don't know. So there's a bunch of tools out there. And Eric, I think you mentioned this one too, but quizzes is just my favorite. And the reason I like it is not as popular as some of the other ones, so not everyone knows it. So I want to make sure that people watching know this tool, but it's super clean. And the reason I like it so much is because it's almost like a spectrum. You can make it super like serious and just ask them questions and they answer the questions, or you can turn on all these little cool features that make it way more fun for the kid. So it just kind of gives you a little flexibility about super fun, or just like, let's get down to the point and figure out what you know. So, and it gives you nice clean data. So I love it for that reason. It's easy for kids, easy for you to know what they know, which is super important part of flipped learning. And then I think on the next slide, there's a little video like we always have to kind of talk you through and just help you make one. And then my second tool, again, is nothing crazy and amazing. It's just Google Sites, which I just, again, thinking in flip video, I know a lot of people use Google Classroom and whatever LMS you're using. It's just a really easy place to kind of keep your videos in one spot. Like Nick said, he's got 405 videos or 50 or 1,000, I don't know, whatever you have now. But he's got a ton of videos, and nothing worse than like telling your kid like, oh yeah, I posted like 3 days ago, like scroll down the Google, like, or in, so, and I know there's totally ways to do it in Classroom and other stuff. I just love the idea of having like one clean spot where kids can go to for all these videos or these videos. So actually the picture you're looking at is a Weebly. I used that first, but now if I could go back in time, I would do Google Sites. But either way, it's just I think it's important to have a nice clean place for them to be able to access your videos or whatever choices you're giving them. So those are my two for today.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up our presentation. Once again, we'll give you the bit.ly link at the bottom so you can grab some free premium trials of some EdTech tools. And I guess we'll invite Tiara back in to close this up.
Unmute myself. Thank you all for that presentation. I think one of the things I learned when I was going through school and in my professional life is one of the best ways to learn how to do something is to learn what not to do. So I appreciate you all sharing what you've learned from your flipped flops and tools that everyone can use. I know we're running low on time, but I'd love to get your take on a few questions. Kyle, great point about the fact that we are doing a 45-minute session that is all about making short videos. And I think that's something as a marketer that I've learned as well is, you know, people's attention spans, especially students, not that we market to students, but in general, attention spans are going down. So one thing we always try to do with content is really chop it up into little shorter videos. So we'll definitely do that with this presentation and appreciate that. That's definitely what we try to do on the Tech Coach Corner YouTube series is create those small videos. And that was something that we learned from you when we talked to you initially about flipped learning. So I guess my first question, one thing I've really noticed with remote learning and more teachers using technology because they have to, not necessarily because they're choosing to, is a lot of teachers are starting to get more comfortable creating videos or using that as their primary instruction in this remote environment. What would your take be on teachers who are using videos for instruction, whether in the classroom or remotely, kind of as a default rather than because they want to practice flipped learning, and then going back to the classroom and kind of retaining that momentum, keeping that up and like really using it to create flipped learning rather than just for remote learning?
So
Go ahead, Nick.
all right, thanks. Yeah, just one thing I thought of is that I think what happens a lot of times with these moments where we're forced into doing this stuff, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm dragged kicking and screaming into these too. Like I'll see Eric do something and I'm like, man, that's so cool. It's going to take me so much work to do, but I can't be the guy that's not doing it. So I'm also going to flip my classroom. Where now I see Kyle talking about this amazing thing where he's got like all these choices. And I do it because I'm sort of in my brain forced into doing it. And I think that's sort of what you're saying. I think a lot of the motivation people will get is seeing how well it works, seeing that when you share out a video, how much easier it is on the students, how much more they like it. And you may even see, if you conduct it well enough and it goes this well, you may even see an improvement in performance. So my hope would be that teachers would just see the benefits of these things and like, oh, wow, this really does alleviate a lot of work and pressure and the learning does increase. That's the most important thing always. So I think we're going to see a lot of this stuff stick around just as like a natural consequence of, well, I did it and now I have it and it works hopefully better. And it just kind of sticks around from that.
Yeah, I would add to this that anything that we put into it now digitally, we're going to get massive returns in the future. And I think that's part of the buy-in is that whatever we make now digitally, it's going to be there. But I want to also throw in and just make sure that this is clear. You can't just give a video and that's where the learning stops. There has to be some type of follow-up. There has to be an activity or some type of skill that they're practicing. And I think that is something that sometimes goes forgotten in virtual or remote learning, is the fact that we might push out a video with 3 questions. That's just not good enough. We need either small group discussions afterwards that expand upon those guided questions. But I think both models, both the in-class model and the out-of-class model of flipped learning, is something that we can and really should be doing, or we're actually doing and we don't even know that we're doing right now as teachers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to add because Nick and Eric, I agree with you 100%. I think it's just going to naturally happen. I think a teacher's going to get up in front of their classroom and be really excited and be like, yes, let's go back to the way things were. And they'll be like, wait a minute, like it was so much better when they can go at their own pace and I can kind of just help them on the side. So, I mean, that's what I'm hoping, but ultimately, who really knows? So I guess if I could give any advice to anyone who's going to go down that road is try it. Try to give a video to your kid in class, even though it seems backwards and weird, and see how it goes. And I think you might like it.
Great feedback. I think those are all great pieces of advice. You guys joked a lot about giving out points during the presentation, so I would love to close this out. Nick, Kyle, and Eric, you can chime in as well. What would your kind of one point or one case be to use either in class flipped learning or at home flipped learning?
You say point or case? What do you mean by point or case?
Like if you were to convince someone that they absolutely need to do in-class flipped learning, how would you convince them?
I'll go first, that's all right. And again, hopefully you give me some more points for going first. But relationships. I mean, no, and I know it sounds so fluffy and whatever it is, and I think on your YouTube series, I said the same thing, but if you forget even teaching, if you want to have better relationships with your kids, which what teacher doesn't, I mean, giving yourself more opportunities to have individual conversations or small group conversations and get off the stage. This is the number one way I know of to really improve those relationships. You just need more time with kids, and this way gives you more time.
Go ahead, Nick. I'll take the end here.
All right, I guess you got a good wrap up. So I would say, I don't know if this is a convincing point, but what I always try to do that's sort of along these lines is challenge the teacher to do it one time for one lesson. Make one video 5 minutes long, push it out for a homework assignment, and then have your entire next day planned out with some sort of a hook or an introduction or some sort of a cool demo, and then let the class flow into whatever choices you want to engage them in, whatever creative activities, whatever labs, hands-on, small group work. And just to feel what it's like to have that entire 45-minute long or hour-long class period solely devoted to getting to help your kids one-on-one or in small groups. It feels incredible, and I think anybody would see how well it works in that moment. So that would be not so much a convincing point, but a challenge to try it. And I think everybody will see how just great it works.
So yeah, I'll let Nick go there because Kyle took mine. Relationships is something that I would do. So point for Kyle there. But I'm going to also say students love when you try to do something different. It doesn't matter if it flops or not. They love when you make the extra effort to go the extra mile. And that's one way to get a student on your side, is just to show them that, you know what, I'm not going to settle for handing out a worksheet every day. I'm not going to settle for this. I'm going to try something different. I'm going to see if you like it. I'm going to take your feedback and then change it based on your feedback. It's just a way for us as teachers to keep continuously learning and pushing ourselves to be the best version of a teacher that we could possibly be, just like we try to push our students to be the best versions of, that they could possibly be.
It's a great way to close this out. I appreciate you all taking the time to present. I think it's been a great presentation. Want to encourage everyone who's attending to put your questions in the hashtag Dyknow PLC. I'm sure everyone will be sure to get back to you with those questions, and be sure to use that to engage with other conference attendees as well. Nick, Eric, Kyle, thank you once again for being here with us today to talk about flipped learning.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Thank you.